All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rechak, Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And as you can see in the title, things are happening. I have a few articles here, three to be precise, um, that I want to go into. And there are two of them somewhat related, but all three of them are related in the sense that they are related to prophecy. Okay. So the first one, as you can see, this is from yahoonews.com, and this came out on April 8th. It says banks are closing customer accounts with little explanation. And this is interesting that there've been a lot of movement on the banking side of things in light of the recent events that have been taking place. Now, on the mainstream side, a lot of people heard about what happened with Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, First Republic, Credit Suisse. But in the downstream impacts of this, for those that are actually in it, that deal with it on a day-to-day cadence, right? People that work with in these banks and understand how bad it's actually getting, and people that monitor these things, they're the ones who are seeing on a consistent basis the how the actions or the consequences are affecting them. And on the MSM, they pretty much just spoke about the mainstream situations, and then they kind of just cut it there. And typically the flow is for most people, when they stop hearing it as like the main hot topic, then it sort of just doesn't exist to them anymore because it's not the main hot topic. There's something else in the news that's taking your mind off things, whether it's Trump about to, get in charge with yada yada, or whatever else they got going on. Okay, maybe another derailment or something like that. But it doesn't mean that, because what happened with SVB was an actual big thing. It sent shocks throughout the system, and those shocks are still going and causing more and more trouble. And because of this, a lot of banks are operating in a um very tight manner now. Okay, a lot of banks are being very strict and cutting off. They're looking and examining any parts that they can see trouble coming from, any parts they're being what they will consider overly lenient, and they're cutting all of that, closing down certain accounts, updating their regulatory rules, saying that, hey, we don't support this kind of stuff anymore. And that's starting to affect people, because imagine you've been banking with a certain company for a long time, and then all of a sudden they just tell you, hey, we're not going to support this anymore, or hey, we can't do this anymore, or whatever it is, and they don't really give you a valid reason. And that's similar to what's happening in this article as it's going to go through. So you had an individual named Dylan, or yeah, Dylan, like Nafir Dylan, and as it says, had just left the holiday light show at Saks Fifth Avenue in New York when he learned that all of his bank accounts had mysteriously gone dark. After the show, Dylan, his girlfriend, and some friends escaped the cold and had dinner at French Bistro. When it came time to pay the check, his credit card was declined. His debit card was rejected next. It had to be some sort of mistake, he figured, because he had plenty of money in his account. And that's the thing. As we're gonna keep reading, you'll see that they just suddenly hit him with it. Hit him with it. It says, but when he returned home that mid-December evening and called his bank, Chase, a customer representative, delivered the unexpected news. The bank had dumped him as a customer. The rep said he should have received a letter in the mail, but couldn't say much more than what was in the notice. "Quote unquote unexpected activity" had led to the closing of his accounts. He said, "I received no kind of warning or red flag," said Dylan, 28 years old, who had started banking with Chase after visiting its marketing booth at New York University. which he attended after arriving in 2013 from Pakistan. It was just out of the blue. Since he wasn't given a specific reason for the closure, he couldn't disprove whatever raised suspicions in the first place. It was almost like getting a scarlet letter, he added. So one day everything is fine. The next he goes to try to use his account, his card, his debit card, all of it declined, not working. And then you call your bank to find out that we close your account. For what reason? Unexpected activity. And people, there are reports about this, and people are not happy. And it's going on more and more. So there's a lot of, because a lot of banks are starting to get desperate. There are a lot of changes going on, and a lot of investors and customers are becoming more careful with their money. Some are withdrawing them at larger pace. Some are slowing down the deposits they're putting in certain areas. And a lot of these banks, yeah, every customer is it's important for them, but at least they'd like to say. But the ones that they really are concerned about are those big check customers, those that come in and they deposit, I mean, tons of money. Those are the ones that the banks really value, because they're the ones that really bring the bank, right? So when these kinds of customers are getting spooked by macroeconomic situations and they're slowing down, this is now putting a lot of these banks in a condition where they're like, all right, we need to make sure we're on point. We can't have any situations that are going to cause regulators to get on our ass. We no part to that. Things are already as bad as they are. Now on this front, as these and this is not the only account. There are certain accounts where people are seeing weird transactions uh happening on their bank accounts, and when they go and ask, they're not getting answers, and they're getting frustrated, because as times get tough, here it is, things are getting tough, prices are going up, things are getting shaky, and then somebody goes to try and extract their funds, and you want to play games with them. Unless you want a mob and a riot on your hands, well, I suggest you do something. And these kinds of situations, this is just one of many, but these things, they stoke the fire, and the fire keeps rising and rising and rising, and eventually these people are going to snap. When desperation hits boiling point, these people are going to snap. And that's why when we go to second Ezra 15 and 14, Ezra said, woe, right? Woe to the world and them that dwell therein. Or let me say, as it's written in the book of second Ezra, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, which means the time for that destruction is very close. And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. And this is going to be due to desperation circumstances. It's gonna force a lot of division, whether by race or by class or by political opinion, or by even just something as black and white as strong versus weak, right? Survival of the fittest. It says, for there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. Now, when you look up the word sedition, it says conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against the authority of a state or monarch. So you have sedition, and then you also have insurrection, which is a violent uprising against an authority or government. So sedition is the cause, insurrection is the effect. When you have individuals that speak in a seditious way, they rile up the people. And then when those people are riled up, that leads to insurrections and revolts and rebellion and these kinds of things. So this is like a it's inferred that when there's sedition, there's going to be insurrections. It says, and invading one another, they shall not regard their kings nor princes. And one another could be anybody. It could be from your next door neighbor to the next neighborhood, to the next city, to the next block, to whatever, to supermarkets, and definitely supermarkets and places where back when Venezuela was going through, which I'm sure they're still feeling the, still some people are still feeling, the hardships of it. But when they went through the whole currency crisis, and there were videos coming out of people recording from their apartments, and you can just see in broad daylight people running into stores, running outside with flat screen TVs. You could hear shots. People just, I mean, it was just completely chaotic. But they're gonna be invading, breaking into places, any place that they can think to find value in. They're gonna go there, and nothing is gonna stop them. As it says, they shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. So they're gonna do what they want to do. It's gonna be Diego's night, and they're gonna do whatever they want to do. You see, so things like this, where you have this guy Dylan, just one of many other people that start seeing strange occurrences as people are put in more desperation. Unemployment starts to go up more, inflation starts to start wilding out of control again, and people start to lose hope in their governments and in the Fed, and they start to see that you guys don't really have a lid on this. This is very bad. Immediately they're going to want to take actions. They're going to want to protect themselves. And then when they go to find out that they can't do that, they can't pull out money from their accounts, they can't take those measures that they originally thought they could, that's when they're going to start losing it and getting very desperate. And it only takes one. It's like a fire. It only takes one, and it catches on and it spreads very quickly. But that's enough about this. The next one is this article, particularly interesting, um, from insiderpaper.com. And as you can see, the headline, it says Texas bill proposes state-issued gold-backed digital currency. So it's still currently a bill, but in this bill, we're going to read. It's not a long read, but it's going to go into what is it that they want to do, and how do they want it to function with this gold-backed digital currency. So it says lawmakers in the United States are proposing bills that oppose the development of a central bank digital currency, so a CBDC, based on the US dollar. Texas is considering an alternative approach with the potential establishment of a Texas state issued gold backed digital currency. And this is a no-no, meaning this is not ideally where they want to be. Now, could could they, could the Fed sit back and say, let's not even try to stop this. It's okay. Let's do this. This is fine. Could they all just be behind the scenes pulling these strings to put out this kind of content where you now are playing that controlled opposition role, but you're still going to the same goal, which is to have digital currencies, making that a normal thing, right? Because one way to get to your destination is have each state do their own thing independently, so long as they're all producing and using and normalizing the use of digital currencies for everyday use. And then at some point, you can just centralize it all some way, somehow, and just make it all on a federal level. Or they could just nah, you ain't doing that shit. You're gonna do it this way. I mean, they have many strings they can pull to get that. But the point is that the agenda of using digital currencies, of shifting away from the normal original way of buying and selling and commerce and trade and all of those things, to now the use of digital currencies. That is the main focus here, because that is what's going to drive and lead to, if even if New York had their own digital currency, Texas had their own, California had their own, at the end of the day, it would still lead to that MOTB, okay, that actual physical device that people will soon start adopting and opting into having it put inside of their bodies. Now, after we read this article, you'll be able to see a perfect case where somebody might want to opt in to say, let me take this CHIP. So it says, the proposed legislation, Senate Bill 2334 and House Bill 4903, mandates the state comptroller, which a comptroller is like professionals that oversee, in a nutshell, the money processes, of whether it's like a government or public institution or nonprofit or whatever. They're the ones who would like oversee all of that stuff. So it mandates the state comptroller to create a digital currency that is entirely supported by gold and can be exchanged for cash or gold. Now this is dangerous because when you start to, when I say dangerous, I mean like if you're thinking from the elite's perspective, or if they wanted to be genuine about transactions and control of money, then they wouldn't have had the dollar been taken off of the gold standard. But the thing about it is when you deal with just things like credit, things that you could just magically make appear and disappear, it's much simpler. With cash, yeah, they're printing cash out of thin air and they're pumping it and giving it to you, loaning it to you, saying, here you go, but you owe us. So we print this shit out of thin air, give it to you. We tell you that this is how much it's worth. It's really not worth anything. But in return, you're giving us labor. You're giving us power. You're giving us anything we want because you're in debt to us, and we didn't really need to do anything for that money. But even with money, right? You would print it, pump it out there. It would hyperinflate, and then you'd have to go through the whole process of raising interest rates, trying to regulate all of this. But if you have digital currencies, what do you need to print? Just type in some numbers. That just literally you open up an account and you see $10,000 in there, like in the Matrix, where they can just load up whatever. It's just like that. They can just program it in there, and it's all run on faith. Wow, look, I have 10,000 credits. I can go and do all these different things that I want. And really, I don't really own anything. What the hell is 10,000 credits? That only holds value here, where we value credits at something. But if you go somewhere and they don't deal with credits, what the hell is that shit? Talk to me in a currency I understand. Can you go and transfer your credits into a universal currency or universal form of money and then go to this other place? No. But Texas is saying, yes, that's what we want you to do. We want you to be able to say, all right, I have this amount in digital currencies. I can come and say, give me gold. All right, this is my digital currencies. Give me gold. And I can take that gold physically wherever I want to go. So, I mean, let's see where this goes. It says, where we at? Texas legislature proposes state-issued gold-backed digital currency with no purchase limits. The comptroller shall establish a digital currency that is backed by gold, so that each unit of the digital currency issued represents a particular fraction of a troy ounce of gold held in trust, the bill stated. They also mentioned that if needed, it is possible to involve a third-party vendor to assist in the implementation of the digital currency. So they're moving, and they're saying we're not waiting for some. We don't want to do this on a U.S. digital dollar level. We want our own state-backed currency. In addition to creating the gold-backed digital currency, the state comptroller would need to develop a system that enables citizens to use this currency for their everyday transactions. And conveniently enough, not saying this is their plan, but it could be, and maybe it could not be. But conveniently enough, you have a FedNow system that does allow the movement of digital currencies instantaneously from one vendor to another without having to wait, and do all this and allow for the use of this. So, I mean, let's see. Um, so it says, so their goal is they want you to be able to use this for everyday transactions. Like today, how you can step outside and go buy something right now. They want you to be able to use that, but with this new digital currency. But they need a system for that. They need to build some system that then allows you, it allows you to be able to do all of these things. So in establishing the digital currency, the comptroller um, shall establish a means to ensure that a person who holds the digital currency may readily transfer or assign the digital currency to any other person by electronic means. So there's no need for physical movement of anything. And if they start off with your phones, which is likely what they're going to start off with, then they can say, okay, today you would use Zelle or Cash App or PayPal. Well, they would say whatever system they come up with. Okay, I go into my digital account, my digital wallet. I can see that I have 5 digital, I don't know, T's, whatever name they give this, 5 digital currency, and I want to transfer 3 to my friend A. Then click a button, and then you can transfer 3 digital currencies to your friend A. Now your friend owns 3 digital currencies. You own 2 because you had 5 and you gave him 3. And you can do that just like that without physically having to do anything. You know, so it says the gold reserves that support the digital currency would be kept in a trust managed by the Texas Bullion Depository under the control of either the comptroller or another party designated by the comptroller. Um, bills bills mandate full redemption of digital currency with gold reserves. So as a part of this bill, they want to mandate the ability to fully redeem the gold uh, worth of your digital currency. It says the trustee shall maintain enough gold to provide for the redemption in gold of all units of the digital currency that have been issued and are not yet redeemed for money or gold, the bills read. So if Texas has issued out 20 units of their digital currency, they have to have 20 units of gold in their trust at any given time, so long as none of those units have been redeemed. So 20 people come in and they each purchase like 1 unit of this digital currency, right? And they all have it on them. That means that the trust has to, or the trustee has to have maybe 20 ounces. Maybe each unit is 1 ounce of gold. They got to have 20 ounces of gold. So if investor A or customer A comes and says, "Hey, I want to redeem my gold for this 1 unit of digital currency," they can give you 1 ounce of gold for that. It says Texans will not face any restrictions on the quantity of gold-backed digital currency they can buy. After a purchase, the comptroller will be required to buy a fractional number of troy ounces of gold equal to the number of units of the digital currency issued to the purchaser, and issue to the purchaser a number of units of the digital currency equal to the amount of gold that the comptroller purchases with the money received from the purchaser. I understand this to mean that if they pair 1 unit of digital currency to 1 ounce of gold, then as it says, buy a fraction number of troy ounces of gold equal to the number of units of a digital currency issued to the purchaser. So the purchaser gives you, I don't know, you're selling the digital currencies at $1 per unit. So they come and they say, I want to buy 5 units. I'm going to give you $5. You're going to take the $5. You're going to purchase 5 ounces worth of gold. So when they come and they say, I have 5 units of this digital currency, I want to redeem it for 5 ounces of gold, 5 ounces of gold is available to you. Here you go. Now, this is at least how they might envision it to work, but we also have to keep in mind so many different things, could go with this situation. But the overall underlying thing here is that the agenda or the narrative or the direction of using digital currencies, making that a reality, making that a norm here in America, like how these other countries are doing it, is what's being pushed right now. And we know how trends work over here, right? You see one state doing something, it won't be long before another say, oh, maybe we want to do that. Now, let's see how it goes. But it's interesting that now these are the kinds of things that they're pushing towards pretty quickly. Now, say they establish a system like this, and they're using the phone, and they can pitch a case to you and say, or somebody can pitch a case to you and say, hey, you can lose your phone. And maybe if your phone is the only way for you to access this information, or you go to your phone, there's an app on your phone that you use to check your balance, send money to people, and receive money from people. And then you may say, okay, well, if I lose my phone, I'll just contact the admin, right, or the comptroller, whoever, and they can like block my account or something like that. What if somebody steals your phone, and right when they do that, before you're able to contact and do all that, they transfer all these funds to some dummy account and then transfer it back to themselves or whatever it is, and they do it in a way where you can't get it, you can't trace it, you can't get it back. That'll be a painful loss, especially if you had a lot of gold in there. Now, then they could say, well, imagine having an implant and having a C hip inside of you, and then thinking of that as your digital wallet. So your digital currencies that you purchase literally live inside of your body. So realistically or ideally, you are carrying with you gold everywhere you go. It's not like today where you actually purchase the silver coins or the gold coins, and then you keep it somewhere, and maybe something happens. You lose it, or you don't get access back to that place. But if you have a digital wallet, which is now one with your body, and you have digital currencies stored on that, then anywhere you go, anywhere one state to another, one location to another, you're constantly carrying these digital currencies with you, and at any point you can go and redeem them for X amount of money. You don't need any external devices on you. Isn't that more convenient? Isn't that safer? If your house got set on fire, you don't need to worry about trying to grab anything else. Just run out. And so long as you have your hand or your body, you can go and redeem whatever currencies you have, and you'll be good. I mean, this is just an example I thought of, but there's so many different ways that they can go with it. If they even allow these bills to go through, or if they don't. But whether they do or they don't, the energy has been pushed out into the air. So, we'll watch and see what happens, what comes of this. But it's interesting. They're moving. The last article that I have is another interesting one, moving in the direction of prophecy, right? This is from zerohedge.com, and it says Macron says Europe should reduce dependence on US dollar. Uh-oh. Seek strategic autonomy. Ain't that interesting? Europe should reduce dependence on US dollar. So you would think that, wait a minute. If the Europe are allies with the US, and the US, there's already influence. Look who's standing next to him. Okay. None other than Xi Jinping. So if you the US, and you saying, wait a minute, we supposed to be allies. This is a time when China being our foes right now. We're having difficulties with them right now. And they're already influencing a great deal of other nations to move away from the dollar, to de-dollarize. And our allies are now echoing this sentiment, talk about we gotta decrease dependency on the US dollar. What you mean by that? What's going on here? What happens to the alliance? Because when it comes down to the fact, these nations have to look out for themselves. And they're seeing that, being tied by Babylon is doing more harm to us than good. And it's not like Babylon is like some humble, proud ass demons. You got this dude Joe Biden, who done went and messed everything up. He has destroyed a great deal of political alliances, geopolitical alliances that the U.S. might have had. And he's just making it all bad, man. Then China is taking advantage of that, and they're going around and they're saying, look, we're going to strategically talk here, broker deals here. They brokered a deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia, which I think it's been like 7 years since Saudi Arabia cut diplomatic ties with Iran back in 2016. And they've constantly had, back and forth. They've had back and forth before that. But, you'll have what was that they had, the proxy war. in made different parts of the Middle East. They back in different groups in there. Okay, like the Houthi rebels or the Hezbollah or whatever groups in whatever area. So now imagine they say, you know what, through China, now we have this peace. We start dealing with each other again, right? We start diplomacy and trade and all of these things with each other again. And then we start dying down those wars. Now imagine those nations that Iran and Saudi Arabia have influence on. Now they can get them to rally behind. So if they're all moving in the direction of away from the dollar towards digital currencies, looking at China's yuan or whatever it is, that is spelling a great deal of trouble for the US, for specifically for the US dollar. And it doesn't look like anybody's is trying to come and give you a helping hand and save you here. But then again, it's all according to plan, right? The plan from the beginning was eventually this dollar would crash, it would expire, and that would give way for the birth of a new one. So maybe they do want to play that card. Maybe they want to play the card where they die and they get reborn again. You know, or the dollar just goes so low, but then they come out with some event, some crisis happens, and they come out on top with some dominant. I don't know. Let's see. So let's read a little bit of this. It says, as the United States combats a recent flood of countries de-dollarizing trade commodities and other currencies, the last thing that was needed was French President Emmanuel Macron amplifying this message. And it starts like that, right? It starts with words and ideas and stuff that they back. And then eventually when it turns to war, push comes to shove, now you got missiles from your own allies pointing at you. It says, after spending, see, soon they're going to start with de-dollarizing, but soon they're going to de-Americanize. What that means is this place is going to be a desert. After spending around 6 hours with Chinese President Xi Jinping as part of a 3-day state visit to China, Macron made extremely clear that France wants nothing to do with World War III, emphasizing that Europe must employ strategic autonomy, presumably led by France, to become a third superpower, according to Politico. Well, sometimes when you look at how these wars and world wars behave, it's not always that every member of the war got up one day and said, we all want to go to war, let's go to war. It's usually a one or two nations that start wars and are allied with other nations, and then those nations get drawn into the war. And then the more nations get drawn in, the bigger the war gets, and now you pulled everybody in here. So whether you want to or not, you're gonna fight. It says, while speaking with reporters abroad, COTAM Unite, if I'm saying that right, France's Air Force One, the French president said that the great risk facing Europe right now is that it gets caught up in crises that are not ours, which prevents us from building its strategic autonomy. What does that mean? Isn't that the point of having alliances? So when crises come up that are not yours, you still jump in and defend them. But now they're saying this shit is pointless. You like, if you look at the US, you're like, you guys are doing unnecessary things. You're always in other people's business, provoking people. Shit pops off, and it's like, oh well, we are part of NATO. You know what I mean? Or we're part of the EU, and so or whatever it is, right? Like we run this. We the whore upon the dragon. So if we start some shit, you all jumping in. Well, these nations are seeing, especially with the whole sanctions fiasco. Oh, we're going to sanction Russia this, sanction Russia that, and then you find out that it's not really working too well for you. Russia says we're going to slow down these oil supplies. Then your allies are feeling that, they're like, yo, second thought, I don't think I want to sanction Russia. It says this isn't the first time Macron has suggested reducing dependence on the U.S. In November, the French president called for a single global order while discussing the power interests of Russia and China and the threat of war. We are in a jungle, and we have two big elephants trying to become more and more nervous, he said. If they become very nervous and start a war, it will be a big problem for the rest of the jungle. You need the cooperation of a lot of other animals, tigers, monkeys, and so on, added Macron. And then as you know, as you go on, you can read the rest. I'm not going to read the whole dialogue back and forth. But I have linked these two in the description box, or these three articles there, so you can get access to them there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. On that, these are some interesting headlines that are going on. As Yahushua said, we had to watch. It's also written in the book of Second Ezra, the ninth chapter, that we're supposed to measure the times diligently. And all of these things that are happening, these articles that come out day after day after day, they're all tied to prophecy in one way, shape, or form or another. So now is when it's most crucial and most important for us to remain vigilant and diligent, watching everything, because something can literally just go like that. Just one small thing could just spark out of nowhere, one flame, one spark, and everything just gets set on fire. So with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rachak, Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.